my pleasure to introduce not only our sponsors but our speakers today. Today we welcome Gretchen Kruger, who is part of the Rover Pipeline team. If you didn't know this, we have Rover Pipeline today. In the past we've had a lot of people that spoke with hot air. These folks have a lot of gas. Don't take it the wrong way, okay? Sorry, Mark. Just kidding. Gretchen is Community Affairs Liaison between Energy Transfer Partners and local government and local organizations. She will give us a brief overview of the proposed natural gas project along with an update. We're glad she's able to join us along with Mark Ryan, who just gave me a dirty look over here about that gas thing, Vice President of the Midwest Division based in Indianapolis for Energy Transfer Partners. Mark's responsible for operations in the states of Indiana, Illinois, Tennessee, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and most importantly, Michigan. He's responsible for 237 total employees. Does that count the 2 you terminated yesterday? Or? 1, okay, 236. Across the 7-state region, and will oversee the long-term safety and operation of the pipeline once it's constructed. David is here somewhere. He's going to actually build it. That's really cool. As most of you know, Rover is a $4.2 billion investment in the Midwest region. The proposed pipeline project would connect our region to growing natural gas resources and provide access to affordable gas for businesses and consumers here in Michigan. Natural gas is an essential input for our agricultural community and vital for our manufacturers, both of those very key to our county. And for us, it powers and heats our homes. Rover will provide a long-term lasting natural gas resource for our region with a domestic clean energy source. A domestic clean energy source. I'll leave all the details to Gretchen and Mark. Thank you again for being here. Thanks to Energy Transfer Partners for sponsoring our breakfast. And here we go with Gretchen.
Good morning. Boy, that's a tough act to follow. So good morning. As I was introduced, I'm Gretchen Kruger, and I'm the Community Affairs Liaison between Energy Transfer, a group such as this where we take the opportunity to tell residents about the project and answer any questions. And I have a team with me here, Mark Ryan, who will talk about operations once we turn over the keys to Mark to operate. And if we can introduce Mark Wilson. Oh, there he is. Sorry, right behind me. Mark is with Land Stewards, and Land Stewards is a company that we've hired to be a consultant and liaison between farmers especially and our company to help us ensure that when we construct the pipeline that it's constructed appropriately. Dave Sizemore, who is our construction manager for this part of the pipeline. Dave is here and can answer any construction questions. And Sarah Hubbard, who is sitting, I think, back here. Sarah is also part of the outreach team, and she is based in Lansing. Tom Shields, I think, was also here. There he is. Tom is also one of our outreach, on our outreach team, also based in Lansing. So I understand that I have about 10 minutes. I tend to talk maybe a little bit more than I should, so without further ado, I am going to jump in to the, if I can get the mouse working here. Oh, there we go. So today we'll talk about the project, the economic impact. We have short-term and long-term impacts. Mark will talk about pipeline operations and safety, and we'll talk about our commitment to landowners and to continuing to be a good steward of the land and a good community partner as we construct the pipeline. And I'm going backwards here. I'm not going to read this whole slide. The bottom line is Energy Transfer has a long-term history as far as being able to build, own, and operate pipelines. It started in 1995 with 200 miles of pipeline and has grown today through strategic acquisitions and other bills to a pipeline company that has 71,000 miles of pipelines. This is natural gas liquids, refined products, and crude oil, but we have 71,000 miles. We also own Sunoco, which some of you may know as the retail gasoline facilities. Some of our assets may sound familiar to you. We own Panhandle Eastern and Trunkline. They've been part of the Energy U.S. energy infrastructure for many, many decades. So we are very experienced in owning and operating pipelines across the country, and we have experience here in the Midwest as well. This shows some of our assets. As I mentioned, Panhandle has operations throughout the country, including the 3 counties in Michigan that we will be traversing in Washtenaw, Lenawee, and Livingston. We also traverse in Michigan, Monroe, Wayne, Jackson, Calhoun, and Kalamazoo. And Rover will interconnect with Panhandle and Defiance, and I'll talk a little bit more about the route of the pipeline, and also many counties in Ohio. So again, we do have a lot of experience in the Midwest. So one of the newest projects, of course, is the Rover Pipeline. It's a $4.2 billion, 711-mile natural gas pipeline that will take natural gas produced, as you pointed out, domestically in the Marcellus and the Utica, and traverse Ohio and connect with Vector Pipeline. This was a pipeline that we've began talking about a year ago in June, when we asked the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission for permission to do what's called a pre-file, and that starts the clock ticking on a number of activities that we've been conducting along the way. 3 months after we announced the pipeline, we announced that we were fully subscribed, and what that means is that we have customers, long-term customers with the producers for 10 to 20-year contracts. So this is very important to understand as well. We do not own the gas. This pipe will move only natural gas. We cannot move anything else. And it will also demonstrate that there is a need for this pipeline to be fully subscribed in such a short length of time. This is one of the criteria that FERC looks at when they are assessing an application, is whether there is market need. And that's one of the boxes we've checked, is that there is a need with the total subscription. 68% of the gas will be dropped off in Defiance, Ohio. And I don't know if you're aware or not, but Defiance, Ohio is a hub for numerous natural gas pipelines. Most of the gas, 68%, will be dropped off in Defiance for delivery down into the Gulf Coast. The remaining 32%, which is of interest to this group, will be transported into Michigan and interconnect with the Vector Pipeline for transportation to delivery points that Vector has, and delivery points in Michigan. Vector will transport the gas, what's left of the 32%, into a huge storage facility in Ontario, Canada, called the Dawn Hub, for use by producers. Again, remember, we don't own the gas. We're just moving it for someone else. So what they do with the gas, we have no control over. But most producers store the gas for use in winter and to pull as needed into the Northeast, into the Midwest, or on the open market back into Canada or wherever they would decide to distribute it. 76% of the pipe is being manufactured in the U.S. In Gulf Coast facilities, pipe mills. We're unable to buy all of it because of the large demand in the U.S. for not only new pipes, but ongoing maintenance. There's always a need for pipe to make sure that pipes continue to operate safely and reliably. The remainder of the pipe is coming from Greece and Germany. It is not coming from China or Korea or other places that we've heard. The related components will be purchased in the U.S. For instance, the compressor engines are being purchased from the Ariel Corporation in Columbus, Ohio. It's based in Columbus. And there's numerous other companies specific to Ohio that we're purchasing most of the other related equipment needed to run the pipeline. We've also committed to using 100% union labor, and the union halls, we will be going to the local union halls to obtain the labor. We hire contractors that are experienced at building pipelines, and that's part of their contract, is that they have to have at least 50% union labor, more if they can get it, but minimum 50%. So there are 8 delivery points, and again, I mentioned there were large interconnects with these pipelines at Defiance, with Panhandle that I mentioned earlier that we own. We also have these interconnections in Michigan and Canada, and again, Vector can bring, with the connectivity to Vector, gives opportunities for these producers to drop off gas in other places as well. There are 10 compressor stations, none in Michigan. There are 7 in Ohio, 2 in West Virginia, and 1 in Pennsylvania, but none in Michigan. Because of the design and where the gas is being dropped off, there was no need to add a compressor station in the Michigan area. As I mentioned, we're working with land stewards, and again, Mark Wilson's here representing the company. They're based in Ohio. They're an agricultural and mitigation firm that, again, will work with landowners to inform us specifically to ensure that we are properly installing the pipeline and taking care of the land and restoring it as best we can to as it was before or better. Our easements along the route here in Michigan, it's a single line, I believe, right? In Michigan is a single line, would be a 50-foot permanent easement. In Ohio up to Defiance, where there's a dual 42-inch line, excuse me, will require a 60-foot easement to accommodate the 2 pipelines. We also get permanent, we have the permanent easement, we also have temporary workspace, anywhere from 25 to 100 feet. As you can imagine, laying a 42-inch pipeline requires huge pieces of equipment, so we need the workspace not only for the equipment, but we also need it for segregating topsoil as we're going through the construction series. Excuse me, approximately 80% of the main transmission line will be under agricultural land and parallel existing pipelines, power lines, or roads. So where we can, and I'll get into this in just a minute about using existing rights-of-way. So we get a lot of questions. So why do you want to build a pipeline here? There's lots of pipelines in the area. What we've, in our research, as we look at a pipeline, we just don't draw a line on a map and say, if we build it, they will come. We have to demonstrate, as I mentioned earlier, market need to FERC, who will make the ultimate decision on whether this pipeline or any other pipeline will get built. So we have to demonstrate need, and so there's a lot of background research that's conducted before we make a decision on where to route a line or whether a line is even needed. Michigan is the 9th largest consumer of natural gas in the United States and the 17th largest producer. So Michigan uses more gas than it produces. Ohio is the 8th largest producer and the 19th largest, Ohio is the 8th largest consumer and the 19th largest producer. So this leaves both states as net importers of natural gas. What's happening and what's the shift has been in the last 5 to 8 years, traditional sources of natural gas have come from the Gulf of Mexico. And I grew up along the Gulf Coast. I grew up in Louisiana and live in Houston. And it's hard for me to believe that after almost 50 years that the Gulf Coast, the Gulf of Mexico's production has dropped by about 46% in the last 5 years. So companies that are exploring for natural gas have to go out further and deeper, which of course adds to the cost, if they can even find it. So it's becoming, supplies are becoming tighter in the Gulf Coast, but there's a lot of pipelines down there. In the Utica Marcellus, tons of gas, lots of gas, but no pipelines. So the market hasn't changed. We still use gas to heat our homes, power plants, use natural gas in pharmaceuticals and other products, but we can't get gas to where it needs to go right now in the traditional markets. And that's why we need pipelines and where you're seeing a lot of proposals come through here. So as I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about the economic impact. It's a $42 billion infrastructure investment. I had someone at a meeting last night ask me, were any federal grants involved in this? This is we're a corporation, we're a for-profit company. There are no federal grants involved in this. We estimate the first year property taxes are estimated to be $147 million. Now this is across the entire 700-mile route. In Michigan, that equates to about $6 million for the first year. And again, we're being paid taxes on the pipeline, not the gas, because again, as you recall, we don't own the gas. So we're paid on the asset in each county. It's calculated on the mileage per county. More than $124 million will be paid directly to landowners for easements. And again, this is short-term impact, about 10,000 construction jobs. And let's talk a little bit about the construction jobs. We had a lot of comments come in saying these are temporary jobs. We'd be in deep trouble if this pipeline were a permanent construction job. By nature, construction is temporary, but the union labor that we use, this is their career. It's not temporary for them. We're not the plant that comes in and builds a plant and has 300 permanent jobs. Our job is to build a reliable source, a transportation source for gas, and we will provide the labor to construct it. In Michigan, again, the 10,000 was across the route. 1,500 to 2,000 jobs would be in Michigan, again, these temporary construction jobs. About $500 million will be paid for labor to all of the contractors. We have various contractors that are, we have permitting agents, we have, and again, when construction starts, there will be various contractors providing services to us. And with all this, we will contribute nearly $1 billion in direct spending to the U.S. economy, once you add up all the figures on all of the economic impact that we have. So in Michigan, the 3 counties that are impacted, the route is about 72, a little bit better than 72 miles. In Adrian Township, as you can see, it's about 6.48 miles. And what's real important to this group is that originally the route had taken us beyond Vector into 6 counties in the north. And as a company, and as required by FERC, but especially as a company, we look at ways, and had been looking at ways when we started the planning, on how we can minimize our footprint, to have the least footprint on the environment and to landowners. And we had been talking to Vector for a long time, and in February, we were able to announce an agreement with Vector that would eliminate the 6 counties in the north, and more importantly, eliminate 110 miles of new pipeline, yet still achieve our goal of transporting 3.25 billion cubic feet a day for our customers. And again, this was an option we had been looking at. We'd actually talked to several other companies, and this was the best option for us as we work towards minimizing that footprint. So the project schedule, as I mentioned, we asked FERC to conduct what's called the pre-filing. We did that in June. In July and September, we held open houses. In February, we filed our application with FERC. And those of you that may follow this, you can look online and sign up for FERC to get all of the information on comments submitted, and anything that the company submits as well. Since June and up until and including today, we've met with probably thousands and thousands of groups and landowners. And I say thousands, it may be hard to believe. We had an initial mailing of, I think it was 30,000 letters when we initially planned the corridor. We're down to a much smaller list of landowners that we've identified. In my group, just my group, in community outreach, we're well over 600 meetings that we've conducted across 700 miles of pipeline with groups such as this. This includes maybe emails and phone calls, but most of them are one-on-one with groups such as the Lenawee Emergency Manager and State Police that we met with. Mark and I met with just, I think, last month sometime. And we're meeting with the Lenawee Farm Bureau next month. So we continue to meet. Our application is in, but that doesn't absolve us from continuing to educate and take opportunities like this when we're invited. So what happens next after the application? FERC is looking at all of the information submitted by us, by their own inspectors, by landowner input, by agency input. And at the end of the day, they will come up, hopefully in late spring, early summer, with a document called a Draft Environmental Impact Statement, a DEIS. That will be also available for public comment, potentially have an opportunity for meetings. That is all FERC's decision on whether to hold meetings and where to hold meetings. But there will be, even if they don't hold meetings for the public, you can still comment on it. I would encourage all of you to go online and watch for the DEIS. And if you have a comment, submit it. That's all part of the process, and we want to hear from you. From the DEIS, FERC will issue what's called a final environmental impact statement at some point after the public comment period ends, and they have time to assess it. And from the FEIS, FERC will issue issue a certificate of public convenience and necessity. And I say or not because it is ultimately FERC's decision on whether this pipeline is built and what route it will follow. We've submitted a route that if today we had to build it, we feel it's the best route based on all of the cultural, civil, environmental surveys we've conducted. If we had to build it today, this would be potentially what we would build. FERC is still looking at that route, and they will again have the ultimate say-so on whether it's built and where it's built. If everything goes like we hope it does, we would get a certificate in November of this year, and construction would begin in first quarter in January or early first quarter of 2016. All the construction will be conducted at one time in 15 spreads, I think it's, Dave, I think it's 15 spreads. So you'll have, which is why there's 10,000 construction jobs concurrently going on. The in-service to Defiance piece will be going into service in December of 2016. So, it's almost a year of construction. And the piece into Michigan here would go into service in 2017. And the reason the difference in service is when our customers need the gas. The construction will be completed, but we won't turn the switch on until, in this connection with Vector until 2017. So I think this is a good segue for talking about operations, to have Mark Ryan come up here to talk about what happens after the construction guys finish with it, and we hand the keys over to Mark to take over for operations.
Thanks, Richard. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity to visit with you here this morning and tell you about our project and our company. On the safety side, we just want to show you our current facilities with Panhandle Eastern Pipeline. I've been with Panhandle Eastern my entire career. Energy Transfer purchased our company along with Trunkline Gas in 2012. We are officed out of, like was said, officed out of Indianapolis, service the Southern State area. And one of our primary market areas, of course, is the Michigan area, the 9th largest state user of natural gas in the country. And as you can see, Gretchen was talking about the Defiance Hub in northwest Ohio. And our lines, Panhandle East, are there, connect with A&R there. We're up to Detroit to connect with Detroit, Edison, and Michigan Consolidated. And our truck runs up to the north to our Howell storage area. This is our primary market area storage. Howell storage field has 17 billion cubic feet of natural gas of storage. We have a total of 16 employees in Michigan. 13 are at our Howell location, storage area location. We have 3 employees in Jackson, Michigan. And we have 1 employee in Olivet. We have a small storage field called Lee 8. It's a 3 billion cubic feet storage field. So that's our current operations in your state. Panhandle Eastern has been in Michigan since the 40s. And we serve providing transportation for natural gas to your communities. All of that time, consumers is our primary market or customer here. But we do service directly cities such as Adrian, Tecumseh, Blissfield. Those we have direct deliveries, transport deliveries to those cities, along with many others. So that's kind of some background of who we are. When the Rover Pipeline gets commissioned at the end of 2016, those assets will fold under our division. Energy Transfer operates in a geographically organized fashion. And so we'll pick those operations up, and we'll have all the current infrastructure there to operate that pipeline. We have the personnel, obviously the training, all the support that we need. We have a liaison with communities, the emergency management folks. All of that is all currently in place, and we have those relationships already established. So really there'll be nothing new after the construction project is over. we'll take over operations, but that should be totally seamless to what you all should experience here. As far as that gas making its way from the Utica and Marcellus areas in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and eastern Ohio, there's over 16 billion cubic feet per day of new natural gas source will be available to the market here in the next couple of years. And so the current, that represents about a third of the entire usage of natural gas in the continental United States, 1/3. So within the last less than 10 years, that area has gone from producing just a very small amount of natural gas to producing almost a third of our available supply going forward for the United States. And so, as mentioned earlier, energy independence, we have it. And so this gas needs to find a way to market. The Rover Pipeline will transport 3.2 billion out of that 16. So you can see that we're only going to be one of the probably many players taking that gas to the market. What's great news for Ohio and Michigan is you have a permanent supply of natural gas for as many years in the future as any of us can imagine, or we'll need to worry about it actually. And so it's kind of just good news all the way around for all of us. If you follow the price of natural gas, the latest spot price of natural gas is $2.70. If you remember back in early 2000s, it spiked up to $10. You might remember some of your heating bills jumping up there, that sort of thing. So it's currently at $2.70, and with all this additional supply, the laws of supply and demand say that gas will remain to be cheap and available for many, many years in the future. So that's all good. Talk a little bit about safety. Safety is obviously our top priority. Natural gas is over 90% methane. It's highly combustible. We transport it at very high pressures. The maximum operating pressure on this pipeline will be 1,440 pounds. And so we are very cognizant of the safety challenges that provides. However, like I mentioned, we've been in this business for many, many years. We have the facilities, the procedures, people with the training in place to manage and operate those facilities. We want to provide safe and natural gas service to the communities and customers that we serve. That is our primary objective. We meet all federal energy regulatory standards or exceed those standards in the construction and operation of our pipelines. As an example, as far as damage control, we have our own aerial patrol group. We have 6 pilots they fly Cessna fixed-wing C-182 aircraft. And they'll fly the pipelines weekly, weather available for that. And they fly at a height of 500 feet, and so they can see if there's any construction coming toward the pipeline, any other activities, and they can also look for leaks. Leaks are typically manifested by dead vegetation. Natural gas is non-toxic, but it is very, very dry, and so if there should be a leak, it will absorb all the moisture out of the ground and kill any vegetation within typically a 10 to 20 foot area. So when they're flying over particularly agricultural ground where most of the pipeline is, they can spot those leaks if they should occur. On a new pipeline like this, we don't anticipate any leaks, releases. Modern technology and construction techniques are such that pipelines are very safe and very reliable. We have a long-standing commitment to the people, the environment, their property, and their assets. And so we want to do the right thing. We know, not just because it's the right thing to do, it just makes good business sense. So you can imagine with the thousands of landowners that we deal with and customers that we deal with, we want them to be satisfied. You don't want calls from landowners that aren't happy about this or that, because when you're dealing with thousands of those folks, it becomes overwhelming. So our intent is to go in, deal forthrightly and honestly with those people on the front end, take care of their business, and I'm counting on Dave and his crew to do that, and they'll hand over. Nothing will be perfect. Things may not be absolutely perfect when they leave because it takes time to revegetate and the ground to turn to normal, but we'll take follow-up notes that they've left us, and they'll hand those off to us, and we will follow through and work with those folks to make sure that they are satisfied. As far as employees, like Richard said, the construction of the pipeline is a very intense operation with up to 10,000 construction employees involved. Pipelines are very efficient. Once they're in place in the ground, it takes very few employees to operate a pipeline. We're anticipating a total of about 35 employees to operate these entire assets, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. 700 miles of pipeline, 10 compressor stations, several delivery points. All the compressor stations are automated. They're attended on 8 hours a day, 5 days a week type of a schedule. We have a 24/7 gas control center in Houston, Texas, and they monitor the pipeline. There are sensors at all the compressor stations, all the delivery stations, and at the gate valve stations along the pipeline. There's block gates every 7.5 to 20 miles, depending on population density. We pick up pressures at all those points, and those are monitored continuously by our gas control group. There's a sophisticated telemetry system in Houston. We set various criteria for operations. If there's an unusual rate of change of pressure or volumes, gas control will get an alarm, and they'll be able to readily diagnose what the issue is and respond to that either by making remote operations of valves or compressors, or they can call out our folks who are on call 24/7 out in the field and respond and determine what the issues are. One of the very important things we do is establish relationships with our emergency responders, and we'll meet with all the emergency responders along the route. We already currently have established relationships with those people through our current operations with Panhandle Eastern in Michigan, so those relationships are already all there. We'll provide them maps, routes, emergency response procedures, contacts for our people, and we'll meet with them as they require, keep them up to date. We also participate in emergency response type exercises, so we'll write a scenario along with them, or they'll write the scenario. We'll participate in an emergency response type activity, and we've done that with groups like Dow Chemical at their headquarters in Indianapolis, included the FBI, the state police, the state emergency response folks. So we can work with and participate people at any level that they would like to from that perspective. I'd like to just wrap up here and say we want to treat all landowners with respect, honesty, and integrity. And I very well know that, hey, it is their property. We have an easement for our assets to be there, but we want to be as unobtrusive as possible. If it's agricultural land, we want them to be able to farm that land just like they did prior to us being there. Like Gretchen mentioned, the pipeline, the top of the pipe will be 5 feet below the surface, and so no matter what kind of agricultural activity they have, even deep chisel plowing is not a problem. And so we'll work with them to make sure that they are not impacted on an economic way due to the pipeline. Environmental protection and the minimization of impacts are very important to us. We have our own internal environmental group. We hire consultants as needed, file all the permits. We have spill response activities. We don't typically have any type of spill issues. Natural gas, of course, is a gas. It's lighter than air. Specific gravity to air is 0.6, and so if there would be a release, it readily dissipates into the atmosphere. So there's no real like liquid type release. The liquids we do utilize are things like antifreeze for the engines, lubrication oil for engines, grease for valves, those sort of typical type products that you might anticipate with an industrial type operation. Like Gretchen mentioned, we have the company has retained land stewards to work with our landowners. We want them to be knowledgeable about the pipeline construction process, any concerns that they might have with their land, whether it be drain tiles, topsoil replacement, any of those sorts of things. The land stewards will provide kind of third-party assistance to work with them and us, so we manage things on the front end so we don't have problems on the back end, which is where I would come in, and I'm very vested in making sure that they do a good job on the front end of that. Finally, safety and reliability are our top priorities for the landowners and the communities that we cross and we serve, and we plan to and will operate the pipeline with the utmost of integrity and safety at all times. That concludes my part of the presentation, and I guess Gretchen and I would be glad, or Dave, to answer any questions that you might have at this point.
And we might have time for one or two quick questions. Anybody have a question?
How closely do you work with Homeland Security to protect against terrorist-type activities when we have these kind of high-pressure pipelines?
Yeah, we've been very involved with them ever since 9/11, and we've worked with, I work with the FBI down in Indianapolis, but we do have contacts with all the states. We typically get involved with them through the emergency management associations. There's typically a Homeland Security liaison in that group, and so that's how we're establishing contact with those folks. Like I said, we have done drills with those Homeland Security folks, and we work very closely with them. We've hired consultants, and we've done consultants to come in and assess our assets and how likely of a target pipelines might be, and what terrorists are looking for, of course, is things that are very high impact, that don't cost them very much in the way of resources, and that cause a significant interruption, either to lives or life or to delivery of services. And we have not seen a whole lot of activity around pipelines across the country, but we are very cognizant of that.
One more quick question, Mr. Maxwell.
Do you do predictive maintenance on the pipeline?
Yes, we have a very comprehensive, we call it integrity management program. This comes under the federal regulations. It's Title 49, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 192. It's Part O of that regulation. It talks about integrity management. We have a very comprehensive plan to monitor all those aspects that could impact the integrity of the pipeline, whether they be corrosion, third-party damage, environmental impacts such as landslides, that sort of thing. And there's a whole list. There's 27 different threats identified. We have a plan to address each and every one of those.
Mark and Gretchen, thank you very much. I would assume that all of you and your colleagues will remain afterwards when we finish and any extra questions.
Absolutely.
It's snowing outside anyway, you really can't do anything else. Thank you very much.